was, again, part of their plan to keep the peace. The angel's invitation was in this account is kind of general, not specific to one person. And in other accounts, it's addressed to Mary and to the individual women that saw him. The two women who went into the tomb, and the angel appearing and quickly telling the women to go tell the disciples so they could get on the road. Their fears of being caught were legitimate. Their fears of being rounded up were certainly legitimate, particularly in light of the empty tomb. Because if they're going to pay a lot of money to soldiers to tell a different story, they're going to do everything they can to squash the story, which would include rounding up the followers of Jesus that might be trying to tell what really happened. Very interesting. That just a very, kind of like the overview I got on the news this morning on Sri Lanka. No details really, but here's what happened. Now, it also speaks of the women's reaction. They immediately turned to go do what they were told. And they were very happy. Faithful obedience and joy should characterize the disciple of Christ, as it did these women. Life is not going to be easy, no matter who you are and where you live. There are going to be a lot of challenges. And it can get really sad to see someone sit down and give up and just complain and cry about their situation. You can understand why we do that. We talk about depression. But that is not what is meant for the obedient Christian. Joy and a constant source of hope is what the obedient Christian would take with him or her. The message of the risen Christ is darkness turned to light, hopelessness, sorry about that, gives way to hope, and the destruction of that cross and the intent of it to destroy is now surrendered for the personal renewal of joy that was delivered by the resurrection. Now, our question, after this happened, did those soldiers believe in the resurrection of Jesus? We just have to speculate. If they saw this, and it says they did, and what they did, they told it, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? But it was serious enough that the Sanhedrin took time to concoct a plot. And during this time of plotting, probably gave the disciples time to get out of town, if you will, and get to and start walking to Galilee. You didn't know they had fake news in that day, right? Fake news. That's what I wrote in this lesson on top of my some of this commentary. The bribe, huge sum of silver coins for a false news report. We haven't changed, have we? People get paid big salaries to do great propaganda on both sides. I mean, you know, it's it's just notable how I've never seen anything like it is today. That's all I'm going to say about it. But it's always occurred, not necessarily for a bribe, but just because people choose whom they listen to and believe. Now, they didn't have newspapers, they didn't have televisions, and especially they did not have the internet. But what they had was the community, and they lived close together, so much closer than we do, even now, in the cities. And nothing has ever been much faster than the gossip circulation of news. It isn't always accurate, but it's always gets there almost as quickly as you can blink an eye. And it usually gets a few more details added. But the news circulated. It was a much smaller time and era in terms of human occupation of the land. So today it takes a lot more to get it around the world, but it got around the world of that time just really quickly. And it was the same way that the false report traveled. So you had both accounts, and so which are you going to believe? Even then, people had to make that decision. Who is telling the truth? And different people made different decisions, and they still do today, even within the same family.